hand over to you. Frank, please begin by introducing yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Audio and screen sharing still works, just to double check.
Yes, it's perfect. Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you. We can see your presentation.
perfect. All right, so hi everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Feng. I'm a project engineer with RV Anderson. Happy to be here. At RVA, I host this NPPE, we call it brown bag sessions, on an annual basis to, people who are looking for getting a P.Eng license soon. So here I have combined 3 presentations into one. It will probably take 40-50 minutes. So if you could be patient with me as I try to push through some of the materials. Okay. For those who are not yet familiar, NPPE is a computer-based test used by 12 engineering and geoscience self-regulatory organizations across Canada. It's as a requirement to obtain a license. The exam confirms the knowledge of several subject areas as outlined by the exam blueprint. I've listed 6 areas here. Professional law, lawful professional practice, regulation of members, ethics, journalism, and professional practice. So just based on the title of the subject area, it's hard to tell what they are. So you will have to go into the exam blueprint. I've included a link here to see these specific topics under each subject area. The topic covered in my presentation are taken directly from the official blueprint, but I do want to let you know that currently the 2017 version of the blueprint is being reviewed by the NPPE committee. Updates could be available mid-2026 and being implemented in 2027. So keep an eye out for that. So the first subject area today is law for professional practice. These are all the topics under the subject area. We'll only discuss some of the commonly seen exam topics under contract law and tort law. For any course or textbooks, to start on the chapter of contract law, the very first thing that needs to be introduced is the 5 elements of a contract. For a contract to be binding and enforceable in a common law jurisdictions of Canada, 5 elements must be present. There has to be an offer, and there has to be an acceptance of that specific offer. If you change the terms when you accept it, then that's not considered an acceptance. That's called a counteroffer. Next, you need to have mutual intent. Each party must freely consent, agree to all the terms in the agreement. Next, you need to have consideration. It's something of value, not necessarily monetary value, to be exchanged by the contracting parties. It could be an exchange of promises. Doesn't have to be money. Then we have capacity to contract. So as the name suggests, you have to have the necessary capacity. If you sign a contract with a minor, then that contract is only enforceable by the minor. Last but not least, it has to be for a lawful purpose. The contract must neither offend the public good nor violate the law. If they do, the contract will be deemed to be void, which means in law it was never formed. So you need to have all 5 elements for the contract to be enforceable. This is the fundamental concept for today's topics. So the first exam topic is the understanding of the tendering process. It's related to the offer and acceptance element of a contract. As many of you may already know, an invitation to tender can be defined as the formal offer to bid for work. The tendering process practiced in Canada was fundamentally changed by the decision of the wrong engineering case. So what happened was that Ron Engineering submitted a tender to the provincial government of Ontario with a $150,000 tender deposit. The way the game works is if you decide to withdraw after the bid closes, then the MECP will be able to keep that money, keep that $150,000. After closing, as you expected, Ron Engineering was the lowest bidder. They were happy at first, but then they realized that they were significantly lower than other bidders. They went back and checked and found a $750,000 mistake that was not obvious on the face of the tender. It's not like a mathematical error when you added all the items together. It's something hidden, something internal that the provincial government would not be able to know. Because of this $750,000 mistake, Ron Engineering refused to enter into a contract with the government. This went all the way to Supreme Court of Canada, and they characterized this bidding process as a two-contract process. Contract A is a tender contract. The offer is when the owner invites the contractors to bid. The acceptance is when the contractor submits their bid. Contract B is the actual build contract. The offer is when the contractor submits their tender, and the acceptance is when the owner accepts the tender. So in the end, the government of Ontario got to keep the deposit because the mistake, as I mentioned, was not obvious. Contract A had come into existence when Ron Engineering decided to withdraw after closing. They're in breach of contract A, and they lose that $150K tender deposit. Next, I have two, I guess, terminologies that just an example of the things that you should know for the exam. First is contra preferendum rule, which means against the offerer. It's a rule that states an ambiguous contract term should be construed against the drafter of the contract. This is because that party did not have an opportunity to negotiate. They may reasonably interpret a term in a different manner than the contract drafter intended. The court also assumes that the drafter of these contracts are well aware of any limitations or ambiguities that should not be allowed to take unfair advantage of this knowledge. Parole evidence rule, which means word of mouth, basically it states if a condition is agreed upon verbally but not included in the contract, then that condition is not part of the contract. So these concepts may look easy, but during the exam, what they would do is they will not ask you what is the word of mouth rule. They will throw you a random concept and say, what is parole evidence rule? And they have 4 options to confuse you. So it's important to understand what they are and remember what the term is when it's used in a contract law, I guess, environment. So next, I want to talk about breach of contract. When a party fails to perform its obligations, the defaulting party has breached the contract. The non-defaulting party is entitled to damages. The biggest question here is, how do we determine the amount of damages? The first thing to look at is, are these damages foreseeable at the time the contract was entered into? A good case study I picked is Cornwall Gravel v. Purelator. What happened? Purelator failed to deliver a tender document to a closing on time. They were 17 minutes late. And of course, Cornwall Gravel didn't get that job, but it turns out they would have been the lowest bidder. So Cornwall Gravel sued Purelator for the $70,000 loss of profit on the job. Now, was this damage foreseeable? Apparently, a person in authority at Purelator knew the consequence of failure to deliver on time. So this is a circumstance that were explicitly communicated between the parties when the contract was entered into, as in the end, Purelator had to pay Cornwall Gravel $70,000 for the loss of profit. So a couple of other concepts here. when we determine the damage, it's important to know that you cannot just step back and let the damage becomes worse. You need to prove that you've taken reasonable steps to mitigate or reduce the amount of damage you suffered. For penalty clauses, I think you've seen it in your projects probably. They're usually called liquidated damages. A key thing about it, it must be a genuine pre-estimate of the damage. You cannot say the contractor, you need to pay me $1 million per day for the delay. That's not a genuine pre-estimate. There's also a time limit on when you should commence an action to recover the damage. You're not allowed to sit on it and commence an action whenever you want. I think last time I did my research, it's about 2 years in Ontario, but it'd be good for everybody to go into the textbooks and the materials to learn more about it. Okay, so that was contract law. For tort law, the most important concept to know is negligence. The definition of a tort is a private or civil wrong that involves negligence. It may arise independently of a contract. So you don't need a contract to sue this person for negligence. It's important to know the fundamental purpose of tort law is to compensate victims of the torts, not punishment of negligent wrongdoers. So that's another commonly seen exam questions. You need to know what is the fundamental purpose of tort law. For someone to succeed in a negligence case, you must prove that the other party owed you a duty of care, the other party breached that duty of care, and you suffer damages as a direct result of the duty of care. So I have a case study here, Edgeworth v. ND Lee. ND Lee is a consultant who prepares spec and drawings for British Columbia Highway. The owner used the spec and drawings in a contract to get price from the contractors. Edgeworth bid $7 million and was successful, but there were errors in the spec and drawings, and it actually cost them $20 million to build this project. The contractor sued the consultant in court and said that it cost me $20 million because of your errors. You failed to exercise reasonable care or competence. The consultant was like, oh, wait a second, there's no contract between you and me. Why are you suing me? You should be suing the owner. Well, in this case, the owner's contract with the contractor had an exemption clause where they are not responsible for any errors in the spec or drawings. Therefore, the contractor had to sue the consultant for negligence, and they were successful because the consultant did owe a duty of care to Edgeworth. The firm, ND Lee, knew that its drawings will be relied upon by the contractors to price the job because that's how the industry works. You don't expect the contractor to hire their own consultant to recreate the drawings themselves. That's not cost effective. And the fact that Edgeworth was one of the contractors that bid for the job, and then the fact that its reliance upon the engineer's work resulted in a loss as a consequence, they were successful in this negligence case. Okay, so for subject area for professional law, the only thing I want to talk about today is the mission to the professions. Many of you probably know more than me about how the application process work, but I just wanted to point it out that every year when I prepare this slide, the process changes. So when I look at the website, I think in a few months ago, you are allowed to write the NPPE exam whenever you want. It was like this in the beginning, and then they changed it such that you are only allowed to write it after you submit your application. But now they reverted back to whenever you're ready, Whenever you think you prepared, you can sign up for the exam and just get it over with. All right. For regulation of members, I want to talk about the discipline procedures. The purpose of the discipline procedures is to protect the public by responding to complaints of unprofessional activities by our licensed members and by taking remedial action. When someone submits a complaint to PEO, I'm sorry, that's focusing on the Ontario scenarios for my presentation. I know we have probably audience coming from across Canada, but when for the case for PEO, when somebody submits a complaint, there's a 4-stage process that's set in motion. First stage is gathering evidence. Because there needs to be a response to the complaint, the PEO will assign an investigator. They will review the information of the complaint. They will ask the engineer being complained to also review the same information and provide a response. Stage 2 is formal consideration. There's a complaints committee at PEO that will review the story from both sides. They will make a decision on whether this matter requires a formal hearing, whether they can simply approve a penalty, or whether they dismiss the complaint because there is insufficient evidence. Once a complaint matter is referred to the discipline committee, that's stage 3, prosecution, the discipline committee will form a panel to hear the matter. At this stage, the proceeding is between PEO and the engineer. It's not, so the person who submitted the complaint is no longer involved. Also at this stage, everything will become public. Stage 4 is discipline hearing. This is follows a similar procedure as if it's in a law court. The consequence includes suspension, revoke of license, limitation on the kind of work you can do, a fine for the complaint, and most of the time, the engineer will have to rewrite the NPPE exam within, say, 6 months. So what I usually do is I go to the Engineer's Dimension magazine. That's where they publish the discipline decisions. And I pick a story that looks most interesting to me. So from the summer 2025 issue of the magazine, the story that I found was that a contractor hired a consultant to obtain soil samples and arrange for testing and provide a report for a residential construction site downtown Toronto. The engineer took a round of samples. The first round of samples, 2 of them showed exceedance. The consultant went back to the construction site and took 2 additional samples, but the consultant did not record the location of these samples or the depth of the samples taken. These 2 additional samples showed no exceedance. Therefore, the consultant's report excluded the samples with exceedance and submitted the report to the site that receives those excess soil. United Soils Management were fully aware of the samples with exceedance because they received the test reports at the same time. They were not happy that the exceedance was not addressed. They rejected the report. They rejected excess soil. They submitted a complaint to PEO. PEO retained Grounded Engineering, a geotechnical firm, to provide independent opinion on this. The conclusion was that the consultant did not meet the standard of care. The engineer had his license suspended for a week. He was asked to rewrite the exam and pass within 6 months. There was a limitation on his practice, and he had to agree to the publication of the results. Okay, so that was part 1 of my presentation. My preference is to power through everything and then take questions. So I'm going to go ahead to start on ethics. Okay, so these ethics, that's definitely going to be on the exam. It may weigh more than 20% of the questions. There's not a lot of topics under ethics, but don't let that trick you. Sometimes the ethical issues are the hardest to get points on. You will get like 4 options that are all correct, but then you are supposed to pick the most correct one. So anyways, ethics. What is ethics? Ethics is the study of right and wrong, good and evil, obligation and rights. They are moral principles that are developed by societies and groups. We need to recognize that there are different and contrasting ethical theories and perspectives out there, and they could result in different outcomes that are all considered correct. Now, the important thing for this exam is that we should learn more about the classical and modern theories, because that's the ethical theories that are applied to professional issues in our industry. I've listed some examples of the classical and modern theories that if you're interested, you can read about it. I highly doubt they will actually test you on this on the exam, but it's great reading material to understand where the code of ethics come from. So for engineers in Ontario, we have PEO's Code of Ethics. It's a basic guide for professional conduct. You can find the complete Code of Ethics in Section 77 of the Professional Engineers Act. Oops. Under Section 77, there are 8 clauses which are written to identify duties of action with respect to society in general, duties in relationship with employers, clients, the issue of moonlighting, the relationship with the other professions, the relation with your fellow engineers, and the profession itself. So let's look at the overview. Code of Ethics states that it's a duty of an engineer to act at all times with fairness and loyalty to fellow engineers, to employers, clients, fidelity to public goods, devotion to professional integrity, knowledge of developments, and competence in performance. Section 77.3 deals with relationship with employers. Basically, in a situation where you just change your job and your new employer asks you for confidential information of your former employer, it could be a trade secret they want, it could be a confidential design or construction methods, could be a formula for chemical. What do? The Code of Ethics says you need to maintain confidentiality of the employer's business practice and technical process, even beyond your course of employment. Bless you. All right, 77.4 deals with conflict of interest. This is a very commonly seen topic in exam. A person should provide prompt, voluntary, and complete disclosure of the conflict to relevant parties. It will allow the informed parties to make a decision as to how to manage the situation. If they decide it's okay, it's not a conflict of interest, then you may choose to continue with the work. If they decide, oh, maybe it's best for you to avoid this situation and excuse yourself from the project, well, then at least you won't be caught in a conflict of interest issue. Sometimes even after you disclose the conflict of interest and they say it's okay, maybe you feel that you wouldn't be able to fairly make a neutral decision or perform in an unbiased manner, you should state that you would avoid the situation and pull yourself out. Basically, in summary, avoid conflicts of interest, refuse or accept gifts or bribes, refuse to misuse your authority for personal gain, and refuse to favor specific people. Secrecy is usually the problem. When you disclose it, then everybody else can see that there's no benefit or favoritism involved. So I got a case study from Engineers Canada website, and then I figured this could be useful here. So the example on their website is that a landowner paid an engineer to carry out the planning study for the development of a piece of land. The engineer prepared the report, everything's done, they got paid. Later, the municipality retained the same engineer to review that, to review the landowner's reports, not just for that specific land, for like, I guess in general for all the applications. They retained this engineer not because the engineer did the planning study for some of the developers, but because of engineers' expertise and previous experience with the municipality. What should the engineer do? Well, the engineer should recognize that there is a conflict of interest. They need to disclose that to the municipality. The municipality could say, oh yeah, that's fine. You can continue to work for us. But that doesn't end the conflict, because they engineer need to reach out to the developer too to get written confirmation that they have no issue with the engineer working for the municipality reviewing the land development plans. If a waiver from the developer can be provided, then everything's fine. If the developer does not want the engineer to look at the to work for the municipality for their plan, then the municipality can simply obtain a different engineer for this specific landowner. So issue resolved. All right, I got a couple of other clarifications for the code of ethics clauses. 77.5 is about duties in relationship with concurrent employer and client. Basically, somebody could work as an engineer during the day and has a second job at night. That's okay. Most of the time, you need to tell your clients or tell your employer that this is happening. You need to prove to them that this will not conflict with the engineer's duty at company X. And you just make sure everybody understands what you're doing at another job. 77.7 is the relationship with other practitioners. Sometimes your client might, offer a secret commission when you're acting as an agent for them. This is a conflict of interest. It could result in criminal charges. It's dishonest for professional engineer, and it's unfaithful to your employer. All right, some other dilemmas when you make ethical decisions. What if there's a conflict between the technical authority and the management authority? Your client or your boss is ignoring your advice. What do? The recommendation is you need to explain your advice in writing, clearly explain the consequence of ignoring your advice, and you need to get a response in writing to ensure that employer or your client fully understands your advice and the consequence of ignoring. And if your employer instructed you to do things such as things that will contaminate the environment, if it's illegal, refuse it. There's no negotiation. These are the common questions in the exam. All right, so I also wanted to show a video for whistleblowing under the subject area professional practice. When you're in a situation when a colleague or employer engaged in illegal unethical practices, you need to report that. But then what the exam usually focus on is that they want to let you know going to social media is not the first step. You just start by telling your employer or your client about the potential impacts or risks for the things they do. If they're willing to take positive actions, then great. If they don't, the recommendation is for you to report the illegal activity to relevant authorities, such as the registrar's office of the PEO. Going to social media is never the first step. Okay, next I'm going to show that video.
An engineer working in the petroleum manufacturing sector, and you're proud of the work you've done and the standards you maintain. On site, you've discovered an emissions level that is way over ministry maximums. You know that this has the potential to harm both people and the local environment, and it's clear to you that your colleagues, some of whom are very close friends, are not following public reporting protocols. You know that if you raise this issue to management, your job is on the line. What if you could act on your conscience and report this further, knowing that you'd be insured and protected no matter what the outcome? Fact is, you can. In many Canadian provinces and territories, if you are a licensed engineer or geoscientist, you are protected by a secondary professional liability program. It covers you in situations where reporting inappropriate or illegal activity or design occurs. This whistleblower coverage in your insurance specifically protects you for legal advice and for loss of income. There's even an 800 number you can call to get advice and understand the specifics of your coverage. So if you have uncovered unethical or dangerous practices and you want to act on it and make it right, or even if you aren't 100% sure and want legal advice, your coverage through the secondary professional liability policy will help you. It's good to know you've got a safety net when acting to the highest standard of professionalism, and meeting your ethical responsibility as an engineer or geoscientist means you may be putting your career at risk. Your secondary professional liability coverage allows you to act with confidence. Take a closer look here.
All right. All right. Remember that website. If you're interested, go on there to take a look. Okay. All right. So we are into part 3. This is probably what most people are interested. So based on my research, the subject areas are weighted differently in the exam. What I've shown here is an estimate of the weight for each subject. It is definitely not official. Nobody can guarantee that. But it's to demonstrate that most of the questions will be on ethics, professional practice, and law for professional practice. So my apologies, I didn't update the dates on my slide, but you can always go to your regulator's website or the NPPE website to check for the upcoming exam sessions. Usually there are 5 sessions per year. Each session go on for 3 days, and you can get the option to pick the morning or the afternoon. I wanted to point out that even if you and your friend are writing at the same time, your exam could look different. They have a bank of probably 1,000 questions, and they just pull questions from the bank randomly based on the defined weight of each subject. So that's just to make sure everybody's being treated fairly. Okay, so before COVID, I don't know if anybody knows, you will have to go in person to test centers. Since April 2020, NPPE has shifted to in-person. From in-person to 100% virtual, this will probably continue to be virtual in the foreseeable future. Remote proctoring could be new to many of the candidates of the exam. Measure Learning, the company that provides the platform for the test, has prepared a video to demonstrate how it works. I'm going to try to open that video shortly. The exam logistics is as important as the study itself, because you want the exam day to go smoothly. Okay. I should have opened this beforehand.
expect with our Live Plus service. Let's walk through a
Sorry,
proctored
Frank, you're not
exam
sharing the
so you
video.
can be ready for a smooth testing experience.
Okay, let me try again.
The flexible and convenient way to help you achieve your professional goals with live remote proctoring. Keep in mind that while online proctoring may be new to you, it's designed to be very similar to a secure test center exam experience. Today we will show you what to expect with our Live Plus service. Let's walk through a proctored exam so you can be ready for a smooth testing experience. How do you prepare for this process? First, have a government-issued photo ID ready. You may also need a second form of ID allowed by your testing organization. Choose a test-taking space in a private, well-lit room with no one else around you, and preferably with your back facing the room entrance. You must work on a hard surface, like a desk or table. Clear your workspace of any food or drink, unpermitted notes, books, secondary monitors, and electronic devices, except your cell phone. Remove your sunglasses, earbuds or headphones, and watch. Remove any non-religious head covering. Make sure you have access to Chrome or Firefox. If you don't have access, download before going further. You'll also need to install the ProctorU browser extension. Close all programs and restart your computer. A live proctored launch will take between 8 and 10 minutes, but does not take away time from your exam, since the exam timer does not start until the proctor has allowed you into the exam. In this scenario, we are launching the exam process from Yardstick Measure. You may also launch from ProctorU's scheduling system or another test delivery platform. Follow the process outlined by your testing organization. Depending on the edges are required by your testing organization. By this time, you should be connected to a proctor. If not, please continue to wait. When connected, the proctor will ask to see your second ID, if required by your testing organization, and your workspace, including all 4 walls and the area around the desk and monitor. You will use your cell phone camera to show the edges of your computer screen. The proctor will walk you through this process and then ask you to remove your cell phone from the work area. The proctor will ask to see any permitted materials outlined by your exam administrator and take remote control of your mouse and keyboard via the LogMeIn Rescue applet in order to make sure no unpermitted programs are running. Your proctor will help you navigate.
All right, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna share my screen again to continue. Okay. Just to confirm that it's working now. Back to slides.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, perfect. All right, so in summary, there is no way for anyone to cheat for this exam. Plan for your exam day, clear the room, make sure no one's going to interrupt you on that day. Know what you can have, what you cannot have. Run all the computer checks. Do not use your work laptop for this exam. Use your personal laptop, because your work laptop will have a lot of restrictions. You will probably have to get your IT at the spot to allow you to write the exam. Okay, so exam format, 110 multiple choice questions, each with 4 options and only 1 is correct. For some questions, maybe more than one looks correct, but you need to pick the one that is most correct, or the one that includes other correct options. The questions are scored 0 or 1, no penalty for guessing. So never leave a question unanswered. If you have to guess, just guess C. That's what I usually do. Of course, you can make an educated guess. That'll be better. There's this bookmark function on the software that you can use to mark the question you're not sure about and go back later. Remember, you have a time limit. You want to finish all the questions first. The time is to take the exam is 2.5 hours. Give yourself 30 minutes to review your answers. So that's 100 questions in 120 minutes. Each question should take around a minute to do. There will only be pass or fail results. If you pass the exam, you will not even receive any detailed score information. You just know that you passed. The cut score of NPPE is a scale score of 65, determined using the best practice standard setting approach, the modified ANOV method. I have no idea what that is, but basically, a scale score of 65 is not equivalent to the percent score of 65. There's some type of statistical equating method they use to ensure variation in exam difficulty from each session are taken into account to ensure fairness to all applicants. One interesting thing about the exam is there's a limited number of experimental questions, usually about 10. They're not scored. They will not have an impact on your results. They're just something to allow the committee to evaluate those questions for potential use for future. These are placed with the exam, and they will not be able to tell which ones are experimental questions. So you need to treat every question the same. Exam results are available a week before the next registration deadline. Candidates that failed the exam will receive a report card similar to what I'm showing on the right. It will outline which content area of the exam you did well and you did not do well. That should be able to help you with your study for the next exam. All right. I have picked a few questions just to it's not to challenge you. You find it easier than an exam. It's just to review what we covered today. I'll give you some time before I show the answer. And because I've been talking for 40 minutes, I'm not going to read the questions out. You can, I'll give you 30 seconds to read the questions and the options. Okay, question 1. The answer is an engineer's seal is required on the final engineering report, but we don't seal preliminary drawings. We don't seal for information documents, and definitely not sealing a business plan. All right, next question. Okay, the answer is report the concern to a manager. Whistleblowing is important, but it's not the first step. Okay, next question. What's the appropriate action when there's a conflict of interest? Potential conflict of interest. Okay, the answer is B. You don't necessarily need to decline the work just because there's a potential conflict of interest. That's because that's not how we usually do business. And you don't need to rush into hiring a lawyer to defend yourself. All you need to do is notify other parties involved, so help them make a decision on whether they think it's going to be okay. Okay, try this one. Okay, so I did not talk about this at all, and I included this question just to show you that the exam could test you on every single thing in the syllabus. So it's important to study even if they're not the main subject areas. And like this is I remember this question because I didn't study this during my exam. I had to take a guess. All right, next question. Which of the following is not required to be licensed? So although things change every year, but usually the criteria, the overall criteria doesn't change. They always look at your education. They always look at your experience. They always look at the NPPE exam results. But you're not required to be a member of Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. It's something good to have. They provide assistance for the engineers. They help promote our business, but not a requirement. Okay, next question. All right, I think this tests on a similar concept. Always approach the individuals, tell them about the risks, tell them about the consequence. Going to the police, going to a media is always not the first step.
Yep.
That's everything I've prepared today. These are some textbooks that are really important for you to study for the exam. Understanding that people might just go to ChatGPT now for those questions. Just keep in mind that ChatGPT responses may not be correct. You always need to check the source. There are also courses at colleges and universities for contract laws or specifically for the national practice professional practice exam that you can sign up for, or they share their course materials online. You can go through them yourself as well. And good luck on your exam. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so now we open the floor for questions. So in the audience, if you have any questions, go ahead and please ask it from Frank.
Well, I finished right on time. I see.
Yeah. So go ahead, Frank. We got a question on chat box. Can you read it?
Real question. Yes. You are aware of related to design, not aimed for Canadian market. If I understand the question, yes, there will be questions about international laws, about how, for example, an engineer licensed in Ontario, how we deal with issues when you work for a project outside of Canada, when that country may have, how do I say this, lower standard of professional practice. The exam, I do remember a question in my exam that tested about, what do you do with briberies or, secret commissions when you work outside of Canada? And of course, the answer is usually pretty obvious among the four options. Participation certificate. I don't think that question is for me. Is it?
Azim, can you elaborate more on your question?
Yeah, you can ask it verbally, right? Instead of writing, I think it's better if you can just read it so that we can understand it better. All right, we can proceed to the next question, which is how many times we can appear in an year? I hope like for this NPPE exam.
Yes, so I think because you will know your result a week before the registration date, so you can keep trying. I think like when I was studying for the exam, I read that you're only allowed to attempt 3 times. I don't know if the rules change now, but I really hope everybody can get it over with after the 3rd time. If someone fails the first time, then it shows that you need to put a lot more effort, or it's the method you're using is probably wrong. You need to go back to your textbook. But at least I think you at least get 3 attempts. There's not, I wouldn't say there's a limit of how many times you can write in a year, but I think you can always register for the next one after you learn your results. Next question, is there any difference in exams with respect to different provinces in Canada? Okay, so I want to be clear on this. The syllabus for the exam is the same across Canada except Quebec. Quebec is a civil law jurisdiction. Everybody else is common law jurisdiction. So everywhere except Quebec, the syllabus is the same. But when you're talking about the exam questions, as I mentioned, the person writing the exam upstairs will have a different exam with you because the system pulls questions randomly from the bank. So that I guess to avoid people exchanging answers, like you can have your friend sign up for the morning session and then you remember what the question are and you tell me the questions so I can ice the exam in the afternoon section. That's not going to happen. Your exam will be very different. If someone moves to the US, will any state accept a professional engineering license material? I cannot answer that question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So
like Frank, I can take on this answer because this applies to my my situation. I just recently moved to USA, and
okay.
Yeah, so only Nevada, because I know it for a reason, they accept the reciprocity, and I'm not sure. Florida, I'm not sure about that, but Nevada for sure, because one of my colleague has his uh, P.Eng converted to the Nevada PE. I'm not sure about the other states.
Right. Next is this training add value to peak evaluation? I think so. I think it's an hour of PD. How long study time requires to just before writing an exam? Ooh, that's hard to say. I think a couple hours every week and about 3 months you'll be able to. I think the goal is to make sure you go over every single bullet point in the syllabus. I guess it's less about how much time to spend. It's more about whether you actually went through everything in the syllabus. Sometimes it takes, if people are more experienced, for example, they've been doing construction management or they've been doing project management for years, a lot of the concepts they already understand, the tendering process and all that, maybe it take less time for them to study for the exam. For some new graduates, they don't have any experience with contract administration or project management, then they may not know how a contract works, right? Could you please provide more details on the good character information section for PO? What is required for that section? I think when I applied my PN application, it was just like a survey. It's like, I have a good character. I think some questions similar to that. Just a survey for you to confirm that you're not evil. I'm sorry, I don't have more information than that. I assume, because I got my PhD about 4 years ago, I don't think these things would change much. I think it's just simply a survey. reach out to you if any questions in the future. Yeah, Faizan, if anybody has questions, you can share my email.
Sure, will do.
Do you need to hold a PMP license before you're allowed to write the PMP in build? I think overall, because NPPE is a requirement to get a license, you won't have a license when you write the exam. So you are allowed to write the exam whenever you want. Yep. Reach out to Faizan if you want my email address. I can let me know any questions. Yeah. Anything else?
All right, if no more questions, then this concludes our event for today. Uh, oh, yeah, so thank you for everyone, attendees and audience, for taking time out on this Sunday afternoon and joining us on Zoom. And thank you very much, Frank, for putting all this together, for all your efforts, slides, and this very useful information. And as a token of appreciation, you will be receiving an email from us as an Amazon gift card from
Awesome.
NEDAC.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll share your email like with the rest of the group. And thank you again, and we look forward for cooperating with you in future seminars.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Faizan. I'm glad that PO changed to MCQ questions. I remember a long time ago when I appeared for the exam, we had to write a lot. Anyways, once again, thank you so much, Frank. We such a beautiful, informative presentation on this NPPE. And I would also like to thank all the participants for taking time and wish you all the continued success in your professional journey. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.